welcome to our second episode of Alpha Unchained. So today, Scott, we're going to talk about Marinade and what it's unlocking Solana's institutional edge. And you know, funny you sort of talk about like you're what father number third time over? Is this the third one for you?
Third time over, yeah.
Wow, amazing, right? So the first time we met was during our Solana incubator days, right? So that was like starting in January, I think is when I first met Michael and team, and soon after I met you. So that's been what now, 6+ months.
Yeah, a while.
Yeah, and things are obviously changing fast, right? I mean, the regulations are changing faster than we can keep up. The administration is just cooking. It's actually cooking really fast before people can even implement. You've had a baby, so I mean, things are just happening in this universe. So pretty cool.
Well, nothing cooler than what Alphaledger has in store for the next, 3, 6 months. So I'm excited to both dive into what, you're doing and how this is going to help the adoption for institutions in the Solana ecosystem. But, all the things that we're cooking up as well. So really excited to be here. And yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no, amazing. So why don't we do this? Why don't we start with you, Scott? Just kind of give a little bit background on yourself, your role as head of growth at Marinade. Let's talk about Marinade a little bit more because a lot of the folks joining on the call from my side of the organization and TradFi background would love to know more about Marinade and yourself. So let's start with you.
Yeah, sure. So my history is fairly mixed, which I'm very, very thankful for. That one, I've been in crypto since roughly 2013, building infrastructure in the ecosystem since like 2016, 2017. One of the first companies in the space that I built in Ethereum was a non-custodial wallet called Portis.
Wow.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, I don't think you and I ever got into the depths of that, but it was cool. I don't know if you remember back like 2018, 2019, when you first came to Adapt, which is a decentralized application at the time, and if you didn't have a wallet, you'd be kicked out. You'd have to go download MetaMask, spend like 5 to 10, 15 minutes figuring out what private keys were, and we were like, there's got to be a better way. And so we ended up building an SDK, working directly with developers, and putting the pressure on the developer to make a better end experience for the user. So now, as a user, if you went to a Uniswap, or if you went to an OpenSea, or if you went to an Augur or Alchemy for the first time, you could just log in with an email and password, and that encrypted the private keys with end-to-end encryption, sort of like LastPass, enabling you to engage with the DApp, instantly. And this is like long before account extraction and multiple like interoperability was a word. We were trying to create this whole EVM compatible world. Funny story for Solana. I think it was 2018, early 2019. I'm sitting in Berlin at ETH Berlin, and I'm at a bar, and Anatoly and I are sitting down talking about Solana, his new blockchain, and he really loves Portis and wants to use Portis as the wallet for Solana.
Right.
And we're like, oh, I'm so sorry, we don't know what Solana is, and we're really trying to focus on all these EVMs. Anyways, fast forward, we got acquired to one of the oldest exchanges. So I was on the wallet side, and I was on the exchange side. Then we got, deeper into the exchanges, and I was on the luxury goods side with like the NFT frames, and I was in the cybersecurity side, and had the opportunity to last year to join the incredible team at Marinade to really bring them to this next phase from retail to institutions. And Marinade, for those that don't know, Marinade Finance started in 2021. Marinade brought the first liquid staking token, MSOL, to the market on Solana. And if you think about the progression from Marinade, it really goes all the way from liquid staking token to building out native staking at the protocol level, which also helped to decentralize the network from creating something we call the stake auction marketplace. Because a lot of people, when they think about Marinade Finance, they think about, oh man, these guys are a staking company. Well, true, we are in end a staking company. However, we're more like a delegation protocol because we don't run any validators. And when I say that, I mean people come, we have an open marketplace, and you're able to engage with these validators in this open marketplace which enables to spread the stake across all these different validators and help stabilize the network, which is really important. Then when you talk about institutions, and like, we could dive deep and wide here with all the stuff going on, from the
Right.
ETFs to the digital asset treasuries, and how our product set's really geared towards that. But yeah, Marinade is, in the end, how I like to say this is, we are a delegation protocol that enables the highest yield in the ecosystem, in the safest manner, the most compliant manner, that goes towards and appealing with institutions. And it's 30 plus people that focus solely on Solana, trying to innovate and push this ecosystem further and solving problems based on the needs of our partners.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's interesting kind of bring up Portis, right? And the retail experience, which, by the way, hasn't really evolved much. I mean, you still have private keys. Majority of the wallets sort of still run on that. I mean, you're starting to see some MPC wallets come through to the market, so you don't lose your keys, because it's no longer cool to lose your assets. And I remember,
Not
right?
your keys, not your crypto.
Yeah, like, I mean, listen, it's an asset that if I own some, I want to be able to pass it down, and I think that concept shouldn't be lost just because it's a crypto asset. But the funny thing is, like, I had no idea how staking used to work up until, and it kind of shows my ignorance, really, is until I started talking to Michael and Marinade team, really. And yours was the first website that I saw where the word inflation reward made sense, right? It was always sort of this fictitious thing for me personally, where how are you producing results and rewards to the end customer, that is, or investor for the matter, that's giving you their Solana or their ETH, and somebody's taking it somewhere. How is it magically all coming together? So I think it was really eye opening. And the fact that you touched upon the fact that you guys were retail focused first and then moving on to institutional was another sort of big sort of moment for me personally, learning from you smart folks in New York. So let's talk a little bit more about that, Scott. I mean, how are you seeing over the last 6 months the institutional adoption? Clearly, you guys have gone through a SOC 2, which is sort of unheard of, in the crypto space. We do it all the time in the TradFi. That's bread and butter. People need to do it. So how is it all fitting together, moving from retail to institution? Now that you're focused quite a bit in the U.S. market as well. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, well, on the retail side, you think about getting your smart contract audits and doing all the traditional stamps of approval on the security side, which is great. You need to do. You need to get your, smart contracts audited. You need to, make sure front end and your back end are secure and have, those DevOps in place. But when you deal with institutions, especially in America, you need to be SOC 2 Type 2 compliant. You need to be thinking about OFAC nations and blocking OFAC nations. You need to be thinking about KYC, KYV, KYB, which is, know your customer, know your validator, know your business. It's a whole nother level of, who you're answering to, who you're reporting to, and what type of transparency is needed so that you could engage in business with these massive institutions. And in Solana, if you think about your liquid staking side, which is fantastic, retail moves in and out. They're doing some really creative stuff on the DeFi side, decentralized finance, whether you're doing like some cool looping pools, or you're using Camino or, Jupiter. But on the institutional side, there's always a balance, right? What is that balance? Security and usability on
Right.
two spectrums, right?
Right.
And what Solana has to offer, um, is this middle part, especially within staking, because at the protocol level, without the smart contracts, you can do staking and you can earn a great APY. And so institutions are aware of this. And we've built out a really great interface to be able to do native staking, working with massive institutions like, BitGo, which is a qualified custodian, or, others in the US that will soon be announced, or overseas, Zodia and Copper. if you want to partner with, or if you want to engage in the institutional landscape, whether that's, trying to be a staking partner for an ETF, or if you're trying to be a partner to all the DATs, digital asset treasuries that are coming out, there's fundamental processes that you need in your organization to comply and be a part of, to engage in that business. And we
Yeah.
are listening to the ecosystem, and the ecosystem is saying they want to partake in native staking, and so we're doing everything in our reach to be able to do that.
So how has that changed the culture? I mean, internally at Marinade. I mean, given that you guys have gone through SOC 2 Type 2, which is, we went through at Alphaledger, and I can tell you it's a journey, and my colleagues can also keep me honest on making sure that all the files are in the right place. We have filings, audit filings, the whole 9 yards that you guys are doing. How's that changing the narrative on your side? And I imagine that part of going through SOC 2 was really the partnership that you guys got into with the Canary Capital on the ETF filing.
I'm very thankful that I'm not the one running our compliance program. Otherwise, we probably would have failed. I am not the go-to when it comes to compliance. However, I'm very good at following the instructions of our compliance needs. And yeah, so it's, make sure everything's 2FA authenticated. Make sure, we're not sharing certain files, and make sure you're following these different processes that are in place. And thankfully, we have team members that came from massive organizations. Hadley Stern, who came from Fidelity Digital Assets, he was there for like 18 years, and
Right.
then Bank of New York Mellon for some time. So we have very unique perspectives of how institutions run, and that we have that wisdom to bring over to Marinade.
So, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, look, I think compliance is not a strong suite for a lot of the folks. It takes a special personality. Um, I'm thankful we have some of those folks on our side as well, right? I mean, otherwise, it's a tough business to be in, especially dealing with the regulators and auditors and institutions effectively. So, talk a little bit more about your ETF. That I'm super curious as to how you guys are thinking about the the next generation of ETFs, especially with the new SEC exemptions coming through, where staking is no longer considered to be a securities activity, right? I mean, it's fascinating that you'll be able to do in-kind transfer of crypto from a institution to an investor, which is pretty sort of, it's a known fact in the traditional space, but it's a really unknown, and it's a new thing now coming on the crypto space. I mean, how are you guys gearing up for the ETF launch? Can you share any dates? What's the landscape over there looking like?
Uh, so let's talk September, October. I would say September, October is a timeline that we think approvals will start coming through on the ETF side, especially within staking. So we're fairly excited there. Um, we were the first staking provider in the U.S. to be written in an S1 filing
Yeah,
with
amazing.
Canary Capital. So very proud of that. And if you look at, you know, what the SEC has said back in, I think it was like May-ish, where they were talking about protocol staking at the protocol level.
Yeah.
So what is protocol level? What is protocol level staking? Well, Solana's native staking is fully integrated at the protocol itself with a proof of stake built in. And a lot of people know Ethereum and compare things to Ethereum, where each validator staking involves third-party clients or staking pools like Lido or Rocket Pool, which is very different than Solana on the native staking side. And then on the delegation model wise, users delegate without giving up custody, and it's directly to the validators. So that's really important to be aware of too. And then if you think about what's the type of immediate risk, well, with native staking, not much. Marinade specifically does not touch the user's funds ever. It's solely gaining delegation rights to those validators. Um, and so we're really excited to see what type of adoption this will bring to the market when the ETFs get approved.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it almost doesn't make sense. Why would there be a Solana ETF without the staking when there's so much yield added to it in this ecosystem versus 2 or 3% from traditional Ethereum ETFs?
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, look, I mean, especially now that with the rise of the DATs, right?
Yeah, I mean, digital asset treasuries are very interesting in themselves. I
r-
feel like they came out of nowhere, um, and then you know I don't know if this is going to be a great thing for the ecosystem or if there's so many coming out, it's inevitable that something bad is going to happen. Um,
but
so I have mixed feelings overall. I have
yeah,
positive emotions for the digital asset treasuries. I just want to make sure that they're being done correctly and that investors are protected and that they're doing it, you know, with the right processes in place.
right. Well, look. I mean, I think the rise of the DATs really, I mean, could certainly have a major impact on the ETF structures, right? I mean, everybody's holding on to these assets, and when you have to deploy them, you have to deploy them in a careful structure because you want liquidity, you want safety, you want soundness. You briefly touched upon liquid staking, and then in the onset of the conversation, you talked about MSOL. Touch a little bit more on that because I think MSOL is something that's an important part of the ecosystem, especially on Solana, right? So talk a little bit more about that, and kind of walk us through how liquid staking and delegation strategies that you guys are sort of looking at and implementing is going to play out because you guys have also implemented a Marinade Select program where you guys are identifying the validators. Like, I mean, it's sort of like creating an honest broker ecosystem, which is pretty standard affairs in this traditional world, but not so much in a public blockchain environment. So talk a little bit more about that.
Sure. I'm actually going to rephrase the question because I think when it comes to the institutions, we strongly believe that native staking is the way to go, right? Native staking versus liquid staking. And the reason why I say this is why implement, any added risk into this equation? And with liquid staking, there is that smart contract variable. Now, yes, MSOL is important overall because of the creative DeFi activities you can do. But like you mentioned, our select. So if I were to break down Marinade into maybe a few different product sets, when it comes to staking in itself, you have three options for staking. You have liquid staking, which is our MSOL token, right? The wrapped token for representation for Solana itself. Then you have Marinade Native, which is staking at the protocol level without that smart contract risk. And then you have Marinade Select. Now, with Marinade Select, this is private validators, 30 different validators that we've brought together that are proven to be tried and true, extremely technical, um, long uptimes, long standing in this ecosystem in Solana. And we put together this group, Select. And the reason why we did this is these 30 validators are going to be going through a process of KYC, KYV, KYB, and running them also through something called Norse Lite. In Ethereum, there's an organization that put Norse together, which is like a, a compliance list that these validators have to go through in
Mm-hmm.
order to be. Well, these 30 validators are doing the same thing. And this will be worked into the product in itself for our Solana staking for the ETFs. So Canary Capital wrote in the product set that they're going to be using Marinade Select. Unlike Marinade Native is an open protocol stake auction marketplace where you have hundreds of validators coming in and competing and bidding for this stake weight, which then gets decentralized, spread across these 100+ validators. But with Marinade Select, they're all under contract. It's an even split across those 30 validators. And institutions have an option. Bitwise, their ETP over in Europe, they use Marinade native through the stake auction marketplace, which everyone in there is OFAC compliant. We're still, SOC 2 Type 2 compliant, and there's a bit difference in meaning. So if you look at APY, Marinade native is going to be a bit higher. It should always be a bit higher than select because there's bidding and competition from the validators, which drives up the APY. And select is just even across the board. The validators know how many bips they're getting, and we know how many bits we're getting, and the rest goes to the stakers themselves. But putting these different products in place is very important. And alluding to liquid staking, well, yes, what's the benefit of liquid staking? It's obviously having that liquidity there, right?
Right.
So what we did was we're like, okay, well, in Solana you have your 2-day epoch, your 48 hours. Well, if we're doing different programs with ETF providers, and we want end of day settlement, and we want to make sure that these ETF providers can unstake whenever they want without touching LSTs, well, then we went out and built a product called Instant Unstake. Now, Instant Unstake is a marketplace, like an RFQ marketplace, where the traditional market makers in the ecosystem can bid and compete to take over your stake account, because you're able to delegate these stake accounts at the protocol level. So there is instant liquidity for the unstaking, but without the liquid staking token risk. So we're solving that liquidity problem, but on the native staking side, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, no, super helpful. I mean, so with these ETFs, do you still see an end of day NAV? I mean, I realize these things are getting priced on as a tick, but like, I mean, how does that ecosystem evolve given the fact that the underlying assets are, priced real time? They are fairly liquid assets. It's an arbitrage on the pricing, and then you have the staking capability. So, do you still think the NAV ecosystem remains the same, or does it change given the settlement window really is no longer a concept, frankly, because the minute you trade, these things settle what we call internally at Alphaledger TNow, right? So at Alphaledger, Scott, like we're moving away from the concept of T+1 settlement, which is the following day, Eastern 4 p.m. close, and there's a T0, which effectively is all the currency trading that takes place today in the marketplace, but that requires all the trades have to be in by noon Eastern, which is quite painful. But from our standpoint and our point of view, as we sort of work on Solana and develop products on Solana, the view and the vision really is TNow. It's an asset that's natively on Solana, that settles on Solana, that's custodied on Solana. Why do we have to sort of have a end of day pricing as a concept? Is that do you see that, or do you think there's some sort of ways from that with Solana ETFs coming to the market?
I mean, that is a great question, and I'm never one to try to forecast how the ecosystem is going to change. All I can say is the technology is there to make, advancements, and it'll be very interesting to see how both TradFi and DeFi emerge in this next wave of ETF settlements and end of day settlements and NAV and T+1s. So I'm very excited to see what happens here. I'm just fortunate to know that we are building liquidity rails for instant unstaking on the native side, and we'll see what happens, as liquid staking or liquid tokens gets merged into this as well.
Yeah, yeah. By the way, I mean, like, it's exciting what you guys are doing. I mean, since January, I've been tracking you guys, and going from a retail focus to an institution focus to talking about ETFs and the select program, which by the way really caught my eye because I think that's the one thing that my partner Chris and I we have talked a lot about, which is how do we know who's the validator behind it, and how do we know this is coming from the right regime set, especially given the fact that we are a broker dealer, a transfer agent, and now also a exempt investment advisor, right? So all these things sort of come into play. Do you foresee, and I suppose Solana ETF would be the first one to sort of prove that model, but do you foresee hybrid products coming on whereby securities are there, and then the other asset classes are like Solana or ETH or whatever that may be.
Can you say that last part again? You got cut off.
Yeah, no, I was just talking about like how, the first stage of innovation really is we're moving from a private fund, which are just pure securities packaged as tokenized assets. We are now seeing a movement towards native ETFs, so Sol ETF that you guys are working with Canary folks. The evolution of traditional finance and Solana as an asset class, which is a hybrid product, what I would think of.
Yeah. You know what? I there's that whole there's this bridge of time, right? Everything is moving towards a tokenized world, but the massive institutions that are in place, it's going to take a long time. No matter how fast we innovate, I mean, look, the past like decade, look how slow adoption has been. But you have great organizations like yourself and Securitize and Marinade Finance and Solana that's driving adoption to be, the leader in the ecosystem. It's just going to take time. And the way I measure this is like, go talk to the average person on the street. Now, in time, you're not going to be talking about the technology of what we're excited about. It'll just be the value that you get. But I still think we're far ways from there. Although I'm very excited that we are getting much closer to that existence.
Yeah, no, look, I mean, it'll be cool that I am sort of thinking about how we can participate in the Solana program that you guys have put together, which is Marinade Select, because to me, a hybrid product of taking securities, so packaging them into a private fund-like structure is compelling, and for various reasons, right? Because from a settlement standpoint, from knowing who the players are in the ecosystem, from safety and soundness. So that to me is a future that's in front of us. The question really is, how do you sort of get the right folks? How do you create liquidity behind it? Because that's something that we collectively have to work towards on Solana, right? I mean, the TVL so right now on the RWA is starting to move towards Solana, but there is a big work in front of us collectively.
That there is, and in doing so, we have to make sure that there's no more rugs pulled from, all the great work that we're doing. I think there's been some instances over the past few years that has slowed down adoption, but luckily it seems that we have the right administration in place right now to further the realization of, changing the core infrastructure of fintech.
Right, right. Well, listen, this was. I know you have a baby, and you're
And a
busy.
doctor's appointment. I got to take her to her first doctor's appointment.
Amazing. Well, listen, I'm gonna let you move in on that front. This was great. Thanks for taking the time, and look forward to catching up soon.
Manish, thank you so much. You're a hero in this ecosystem, building and driving adoption for a long time. So thank you for all the work that you've done, and looking forward to seeing how we can continue our collaborations moving forward. And thank you for everything you've done for this ecosystem.
Thanks, Scott. Talk soon.
All right, cheers, everyone. Thank you.
See ya.
This ecosystem.
Thanks, Scott. Talk soon.
All right, cheers, everyone. Thank you.